Welcome to today's webinar entitled Destination Unknown. Employees without career paths present a risk to your organization. I'm Linda Janak, and I'm the CEO of Talent Guard. Talent Guard is a full-service, competency-based talent management software company, and I want to thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to learn more about career pathing and how it can help you improve employee engagement. So let's start with a common scenario that we should all be familiar with if you're in the HR department, and that is the recruiting cycle. A candidate identifies a great job opportunity at your company, and after reviewing the job description, the candidate deems it a perfect fit with his background. So he prints out the job description and he carefully updates his resume to ensure that his skills match the job description as much as possible. Then he submits his resume on your website via a job board for your organization to review. And should he get selected, he's screened based on a set of qualifying questions. And of course, if he passes that qualifying interview, he's invited to meet with the team. Of course, the candidate's thrilled about the possibility of securing a position that will get his career off the ground or take him to the next level if he's an experienced person. And this is where the fun begins, and the company starts to throw out what I call the career hook. Now, I believe that the on-site interview accomplishes two goals. The first is that it's the employer's job to get an accurate assessment of the candidate and present the candidate with an honest representation of the culture and the job role. That'd be the second point. However, what I've seen all too often is that many interviewers, especially the candidate's potential direct manager, will over-promote the company's culture, oversell the role, and stretch the truth in a big way about the potential career advancement opportunities in hopes of hiring this hot new recruit. Now, some people might think, well, that's okay, but it's really not, and this often backfires for the company according to a study presented in the Journal of Management. Now, there have been, I meant to slide forward. There have been some recent research conducted, mostly psychometric studies from a firm called SHL that found that 80% of a job applicant's experience, that what they experienced is that when they start their new role, 80% of those people typically leave because they feel that they were misdirected during the interview process. That's a huge percentage, and we need to do something about that. So typically what happens is the employee gets really excited about the job opportunity. He accepts the job offer and starts with a tremendous amount of enthusiasm and hope about their new career path. So they spend the first few weeks getting to know the company, the people, the products, and the expectations of his job, which no one was really able to articulate when he started, not even through the onboarding process. So after 6 months of trying to do his job, meet the right expectations, and ask his manager for clarification on priorities, he ends up quitting. That's not all. Now that he's spent time really getting to know the culture, he finally realizes that the career advancement he was promised was most likely never going to happen because he found out that very few people were promoted from within. This scenario, as you can relate to, is all too common. In an article by Leigh Brunham entitled "The 7 Hidden Reasons Employees Leave," her results found that about 35% of American workers quit in the first 6 months. And she cites that more than 6 in 10 turnovers begin with post-hire shock. When the employee realizes that she has to report to a different boss or won't be advancing to the next position as soon as possible. These are just some examples. As the disgruntled employee walks out the door, what he typically communicates on his exit interview is that, quote, the job was oversold and the company under-delivered in their promises. So that promise of career development keeps falling short for new recruits and existing employees, and it's costing companies millions of dollars annually. As a matter of fact, 1 in 3 employees report that their career progression to date has failed to meet their expectations, according to the latest CIPD Employee Outlook Survey. The hiring and development process must be overhauled, and companies must seek new ways to manage this change. This presentation that I'm bringing forth today will recommend a couple of strategies for laying the foundation for an effective and integrated process focused on employee engagement and retention. Let's imagine for a moment a pendulum. And let's pretend that this is a visual for a company's career culture. On the one side of the pendulum is the potential for employees to have a great job, super benefits, career advancement. And on the other side is the potential for the employees to create a great workplace, set up employees for success, and provide career opportunities over the long term. If this pendulum stands still and doesn't swing, nothing happens. Nothing good happens and nothing bad happens. It just stands still. With stillness, people move on because they're bored, frustrated, etc. The beauty, though, about the pendulum is that it can't swing only one way once it gains momentum. If companies are willing to push the pendulum with real career pathing initiatives, then it will inevitably swing the other way, where employees stay longer and have higher engagement. However, if we really think about what's going on in America, most companies must focus on the bottom line to increase revenue, gain market share, and beat the competition. The dramatic rise in the use of formal performance reviews supports the need by corporations to hold employees accountable for producing results, and then we reward them with incentives. The business practice of holding employees accountable is a good one. But this practice typically only favors the company. Employee development is typically focused on very specific competencies as they relate to business performance each month, each quarter, each year. When improvement is needed, the company often has to create a very specific individual development plan, but this plan is typically short-term focused. The items on that plan only satisfy what the company needs without regard to the interests and aspirations of the employee. What employees are really creating is a quote-unquote learning plan. Companies see current performance management practice as the means to improve employee engagement, but they are consistently missing the high engagement marks year after year. For the pendulum to work the right way, companies must also provide a way for employees to express their aspirations, their interests, in addition to simply providing performance input. This is what I refer to as the corporate gap. Companies must help employees identify opportunities across their entire company, see what jobs best match their skill profile, work on developing skills before making career moves, and building long-term career paths with many steps along the human development life cycle. That what I mean by that is it has to span marriage, family, sickness, etc. to be successful. So If we don't do this as a community, then when employees continue to join on the promise of career development and it never happens, your employer brand is broken. The communication of misleading job expectations in the hiring process and the lack of follow-through on career development once hired, which leads to those broken promises, end up creating dreadful consequences for your company, including the poor retention, the low employee engagement scores, high turnover, and negative reviews that we can find now on Glassdoor, on Twitter, on Facebook, all of which have the potential to go viral and make the need to recruit top talent a nightmare. Companies spend $720 million on employee engagement annually. However, these investments are clearly not having the desired impact. So how can we, as HR advocates, introduce programs that fix this problem? How can we let employees know that we care while focusing on corporate results? HR continues to do engagement surveys, and we continue to see results year after year. We're not getting a return on that investment. So we need to change the cycle, and let's start here. Let's work together on a real program that changes the way we engage our workforce. Career development must be viewed as a priority by the entire company, from the CEO to the lowest level manager. The company must understand what it means to progress in a career, what it means to have supportive mentorship through the transition process. By career development, I am not simply referring to a piece of paper someone fills out each year with a few career goals. It's much bigger and broader than that. Career development is connected to performance and aligned with strategy, but it's not the starting point. That's an end point. So what are the keys to advancing this shift? I really feel that there are two keys that are important foundational components required to make a big impact in the area of employee engagement. One is setting the right job expectations with employee from the interview process through onboarding and development. Then we have to also expose career paths for the world to see. We need to bring transparency to job opportunities and personal development. So let's discuss what it means to set the right job expectations. I love this slide, and I use it often in presentations because I think it has profound impact. Let's return for a minute to the candidate that I spoke about earlier in the hiring process. As you've probably experienced in your own job search, hunting for a job is a nightmare. Although I could list a litany of issues related to the search process, I'm going to stay focused on those points relevant to the story. Like you, our candidate sifted through hundreds of online job descriptions. He searched for the title marketing manager, and the results of that search were very disappointing. No matter how many job descriptions he found across varying different companies, he just wasn't satisfied with information. Each job description was in a different format and focused on a variety of different items. He couldn't actually figure out what the role expected of him. Even when he went to a well-known Fortune 50 company's very own private job board, he found similar results. These 3 job descriptions are an example served up by a very well-known Fortune 50 company. And I'm not dinging this company. This is one of many examples. Well, let's look at what's wrong with these 3 different examples. As you can see here, some focused heavy on culture, others focused heavy on responsibilities, Others have written strong, ongoing narratives trying to express the day in the life of a person in the role, while others focus on qualification and requirements. There is no standardization across these job descriptions. They're haphazard. I know they're written by different people with different backgrounds. Some are managers, some are HR, some are recruiters, some are external recruiters, some are internal recruiters. They just lack consistency. And these job descriptions were served up using an applicant tracking system, which is supposed to streamline the hiring process from assessment to hire. So, how are we able to, as an organization, keep people when these jobs clearly aren't setting the right job expectations from the get-go? If we don't serve up the job right expectations, how can an employee follow through, or how can interviewees follow through on interviewing for the right role? How can we ask the right questions if we don't know really what is expected of somebody? And if we're not putting out the right role and asking the right questions, then how can we expect somebody to be successful from day one? We can't keep producing job descriptions that look like this and expect people to stay. As you saw in the statistics, they're not staying, but we can change it. Currently, there is no common language for defining roles or associated skills and capabilities. Many companies take the same approach to job description creation. They search Indeed, Monster, Career Builder, and across those three sites, they use the data in there to create their own job description and believe, quite frankly, that it will work for them. Now, for a Fortune 50 company with 100,000 employees and roughly, let's say, 3,000 to 4,000 unique job roles, there is a tremendous amount of room for chaos, duplication, and mistake. It will be a nightmare, as it looks here in this visual. When a company has no formalized and standardized job descriptions, it is impossible to provide transparency and visibility into expectations of the roles. Hence, there will be no meaningful career paths. Most companies will then forego the career pathing initiatives because it seems so difficult and time consuming. Instead, they provide simple paper-based career paths that reflect opportunities in their local office. Remember what it was like for you to make internal career transitions. If you're like most of us, it was very tough. Personally, the only way I was able to transition into other roles within my company is because I was relentless. I had no idea what opportunities existed in my local branch, let alone in Europe or anywhere else. So I created my own path and got the company to create a role around expertise that I brought to the table. However, that is an unrealistic way to do it. The majority of our workforce will not be that pushy in their approach to career development, nor does an HR department want that. So how can we as an organization serve up career progressions that span different job families, different grades, different departments, different business units, and our global locations? That would take forever, right? It's already too much work for HR. This could be a huge burden. But let's pause and hold judgment for just a minute. Creating formal career paths really start with asking one basic question. What skills, knowledge, and experiences are needed to compete and deliver value to your customers? Wait, you don't know how to answer this question? Well, guess what? That is a leadership problem. If your organization hasn't defined the values and competencies it takes to win in the market and create a great workplace, you need to schedule a visioneering session, as my friend and author of the Z Factor, Cindy Goldsberg, would say. Once that's defined HR can lead the initiative to figure out how those competencies span specific roles and work in harmony to achieve results. Once you understand what it takes for your company to deliver value and you have some idea about the technical competencies required to differentiate your business, you will have the basis of a career framework. Now, many companies that I've worked with have purchased a soft competencies library from companies like HRSG, Lominger, DDI, or some other competency provider. Other companies have built their model from scratch. Whether you've purchased or built your soft skills competency library, it is a good first step. I refer to that as the core competency. These core competencies typically span every job in the company. Typically, the number of competencies will be about 9 to 12, and these reflect the company's overall culture and values. Now, the next step is building out the job-specific, quote-unquote, technical competencies, and that usually is the most time-consuming part of your career framework. Since most companies have many grades and levels in their job family, they typically need to rely on many indicators and proficiency skills to differentiate one role from another. The industry standard is typically to build out 5 levels of proficiency, which give employees ample opportunity to develop new skills along a continuum of greater expectations, as you can see here in the visual at this level. And finally, for every job role, it's important to identify at the top of the realm your qualifications, which include education, certification, languages, specialty skills, and experiences. Experiences are typically competencies that are formed in combination to perform a role well. And also, last but not least, preferences. Where is the role required? Is it full-time or part-time? Does it require lots of travel or not? How can you help an employee determine whether they are a good fit on a personal level? So finally, I'll leave you with this thought. What is the importance of a competency-based profile? Well, foremost, it creates a taxonomy for the entire company to use as a foundation for all talent management initiatives. And I will talk about that in a minute. But first, let's look at what it should appear like when your job role profiles are in the right format. So let's dig a little deeper into this partial job role that I have here. I'm showing you some of the role, not all of it. And in this example, you can see here that I have a competency name, a job title, number 1, a competency name. We have a description. We have the actual various skills that are required under the competency. We have our different proficiency levels, and in this case, we've only used 3, and we've provided descriptors for those. And then we have the specific indicators. The indicators tell a person what's being measured, what's expected of them, how people are going to look at whether they've achieved a level of proficiency or not. Now, typically, in each job role, we'll have about 9 top-level competencies with 3 skills, and then between 3 and 5 proficiencies. So you can gauge how effective or how comprehensive you are by those metrics. Now, if you'd like to see one that's comprehensive, I'm happy to send you that, and you can get my contact information at the end of the presentation. Now, once we have that, and I'm a strong advocate of having a comprehensive career framework like that, we can start to use that in all of our talent management practices. As an example, in recruiting, kind of our first little bullet here, Managers in HR can post a consistent job role profile using the ATS so that candidates know what it is expected of them in the role. This job role profile serves as a catalyst to create questions that are unique to each interviewer. These questions can be behavioral in nature to solicit real-world stories of those we're interviewing. And then you can use that data in the debriefing session to gain objective feedback. In the selection process, we can create an assessment based on that job role profile to have the employee assess themselves against the role. And then we can use that as a benchmark to compare to other people who are high performers already in our company. That can be just a data point for you. That same job role profile can be used in your performance review. So we can move away from simply doing soft skill value assessments to core responsibility assessments. And we can see how they're measuring up against what is expected of them in the role. In the development area, employees can now compare their talent profile, which is the job role, to other job roles in the company to see what are my gaps, how do I need to fill this gap in order to move forward in the company, what are all the learning things that I can start working on proactively. And then from a planning perspective, I call this workforce planning. Now that I have this immense amount of data, employees are interacting with the system, we have their aspirations, their performance scores, their talent profile, their resume, all of that information, I can now use that data to run analytics on my workforce to make informative business decisions. It's that comprehensive. Now, I'm going to attempt, this is an attempt, to give you an example that may help you communicate the importance of a career framework to your management team. And my example is that is a symphony. If you want to produce an amazing symphony, many components must be in place in order to do that. The composer makes music. Each note the composer uses represents a competency, let's just say that speaks to each musician on the team. So although the same note exists on the composition, its sound is expressed a different way depending on the instrument that is played. For example, the harp versus the tuba. They're playing the same song, but they sound different. In our terms, that might be the different job family. Then the conductor, HR, uses the composer's music, all those notes, to create job role profiles, performance reviews. They can build career paths. They can create succession plans because we've standardized on the notes. Those notes are then created in a composition. That composition is then used in a unique way across all those job families to come together to create harmony. Then the manager uses that framework to determine on their teams first chair, second chair, third chair, much like we do in corporate succession planning, right? It's based on those who play the music best, and those that can lead others determines where we put them, and then who will come second, third, and fourth. So in this view and in this vein, we can see kind of holistically what talent is needed, where that talent is positioned, how many people are in the succession pool, what specific talents they have. We can make decisions about or be proactive just in case someone might be sick or they fail to show for a performance. We can move people around with the right skills in the right way at the right time. It requires all of these elements and more to perform, to create and make great music that we all can enjoy. So I hope that gives you a little bit of juice, ammunition, if you will, to use to form a better and broader and deeper analogy as you roll out your initiatives. Let me share some final thoughts on competency models and job role profiles. I'm sure at this point you might be feeling very overwhelmed by the amount of work that you would need to create in order to change engagement scores. First, let me just tell you that you're not alone. I hear that time and time again. I've worked on dozens of career pathing projects, and every member of a company starts out feeling this way because it's new, it's a new way to think, it's a lot of work to do, it's a lot of structure, it's a lot of change, organizational change. But over time, I promise you that challenge seems very reachable, and I'm going to explain why. And people always ask me, should I build a model or should I buy a competency model and my job role profiles? My recommendation, having done this for a long time, is to always buy. Now, that's if you can find them. You'll find more competencies than you will job role profiles, but at least if you find the right competencies, you can build them rather than create everything from scratch. I think it's more affordable in the long run to work from a model that is proven in the industry. When you start with a basic framework, it's also much faster to complete the job role profiles and launch them internally so that employees can benefit from them early on. On average, it takes companies at least 2 years, and let's say you have 1,600 profiles, to create those profiles and begin to use them. That's a really long time when you can shorten that to months. But once you've made your decision to build or buy, you can move to the fun part, using them to fuel and manage your talent practice. So next, let's start talking about how you expose your career paths for the world to see. And you might be asking, the world? Yes, that's exactly what I mean. Show your employees and your potential recruits what's possible. Let's imagine for a minute that your static career site is no longer just a job posting site. Rather, what if it could be a site that candidates log into to see and build a career path that could happen if they joined your company? Imagine being on site at a recruiting event and walking those recruits over to a computer and showing them potential career paths. Imagine that employees can log into a system and at any point throughout their career life cycle, build and change their career paths over time. The possibilities are endless. Corporate America is no longer, not even America, the globe, the world is no longer in a position to only support upward moves. Millennials, our biggest generational workforce, even beyond baby boomers, want to be exposed to career opportunities across the career lattice. That's why I have my little guy there cutting down the ladder. As an HR community, we need to move beyond basic communication about career opportunity. It's no longer just about progressing up the ladder within a person's immediate department. It's about seeing, not communicating, seeing all job opportunities in descriptions, even if you have no vacancies, so that employees can be proactive in their development, personal development and career development. In the past, the career ladder was predetermined and predictable. The company defined the path for you. We need to let employees build their own path based on their skills and interests. Let's stop presuming we know how people want to develop. Let's offer many methods and many tools to help employees improve skills, experiences, and knowledge based on what they want and how they learn best. So with this foundation, your entire team can move beyond overselling to get the top recruits. Instead, we can move to a culture that answers employees' most important questions, such as what career opportunities are available now and in the future. We don't have to shout it, we can show it. When I change a role, how will I know that my skills are fit or that they're lacking? How can I track my development? How can I engage my manager now in the support of the careers that I'm interested in to create better dialogue? It's easy to put titles on a ladder. Most of the companies in the universe do this, if they do it at all. This is what we don't want to do. It's not sufficient. It's really not transparent to show your job family hierarchy. That really is an HR thing. It doesn't help people make the right career moves. When you expose this type of model to employees and do not back it up with a formalized framework, you leave basically career advancement, if you will, up to personality. I'm going to put someone in this role because they're great or I like them. Personality only goes so far. Eventually, people get sick of people who are superstars getting the coveted roles and begin resenting the company. And they'll cite things like the glass ceiling, they're not likable, or whatever reason they deem important. Just doesn't go against your good corporate brand. With the right framework in place, a company can map out upward and lateral moves with great confidence and structure. And in this example, let's assume that the employee is an operations assistant, right? The next logical step, if they're only seeing a career ladder, is up. So yeah, I can move to an operations coordinator. But what I don't know is that I have a good amount of skills, a good overlap. Let's say it's 70%. 70% of the skills that are sufficient for the marketing assistant, the sales assistant, and the customer assistant. But I don't know that. So that is what we need to make visible. And let's spend a minute now on what it means to be visible before we get into the actual tools. Why might we be able to have confidence when we have the roles? So let's take this example. Because an employee can finally start to build a career path, they can now compare themselves to roles of interest and see the gaps. In this simple example, I'm demonstrating the difference between an employee's current role, you can see here on the left, Director of Operations, to a future role, VP of Operations. Obviously, this is an upward move. Now, since in the background, HR, we've already quote-unquote configured the gaps, we've already created the career paths that the employees are now building on their own, we can see the difference between the proficiency levels. And you can see here at the Director of Operations, when we refer to adapts organizational strategies, we are labeling that at a practical application proficiency level. Whereas for the Vice President, we're saying you have to have the recognized authority proficiency level, and we can see the difference between the two. Now, what we do behind the scenes is we say the difference between practical and application is X. X represents the gap that an employee can now use to see what's missing, see the actual learning resource that will close the gap, and then engage in that learning resource. So it becomes a very powerful tool for the employee to truly self-direct their career development. And that's just one example. Now, if your company is dealing with 50 job role profiles, that is very different than having to deal with 4,000 job role profiles across the globe. There is no effective manual way to manage this process. It would look like an airline's map going from location to location in the back of one of those magazines. It's chaotic. It must be served up in an automatic and visually pleasing way with science to drive the gap analysis and coaching to encourage the completion of goals. Now, Talent Guard accomplishes that or these goals with its career pathing tool because there are many goals. And I'm not being self-promoting. My goal is always to keep these webinars educational. But when you are a market leader defining a new space, you have to use some type of visual to give you a mechanism to see what's possible to create change. So I'm going to try to be as objective as I can. This is an example of our career pathing tool. Now, in the middle of the flower, you can see here we have an accounts payable manager. And around the flower, I call it the flower, it really is supposed to represent a lattice. And it's represented this way so you can't see what opportunities are just straight up or across or even down. You're supposed to pick roles based on interest. And in the green circles, those are actually, if you look closely, little bobblehead people. Those represent the roles that closely match you depending on the filters that you've set on the left. And those filters could be set on a specific location you're interested in, a specific team. You might only want to see the career moves in your department, or you might want to see them across the organization, or a business area, or a job grade, or on specific skills. So you have the ability to drive that and then build a career path that you're interested. Now, in this visual, you can see on the bottom there are many different little icons. Well, an employee can build as many career paths as they want, and they can build up to 8 moves in each of those paths. Now, why might somebody want to do that? Well, I might have an interest in looking what it takes to get to be the CEO of a company, or I might want to see what it takes to get to the VP of my department, or I might want to see what it's like to change my career altogether from marketing to sales in South Africa. So I'm able to look at all of those, and for the ones that I am truly interested in, I can make those aspirational, and then those get shared with my manager. So there's a tremendous amount of opportunity here to engage people in self-directed career development. And some amazing outcomes happen when you automate career pathing. You get to not only build your own path, but in various other tools, you can see suggested moves in a career path, up or lateral. You can see what the most common or popular career moves are based on the ones that have been successful in your company. You can, as I said, use several methods to search for different types of job roles, whether it be department or business unit. You can look at all of the qualifications required of the role. You can visually see what all the recommended learning activities are. You can access success stories of those who achieved in similar career moves. So it kind of validates that it's possible to have career development in your company. You can actually see the number of people in the existing role that you're interested in, which is great because then you can collaborate with them as mentors. And something extremely unique, you can solicit help from career advisors, whether internal to your organization or external, who can help you move along in your career journey. And we do that with our career advisor matching tool. Now, let's say, for an example, let's go back to our new recruit, and let's say that he was being recruited or hired for a business development position, and he wanted to see what it would take to become a senior business development manager. All he would have to do is create a basic profile, and a basic profile really, it happens in 2 ways. If you're not an employee, you can fill out a very simple assessment. If you are an employee, you're assigned automatically a job role profile that has specific competencies already assigned to you at the minimum level, and then you can use that assessment to then change it. But let's say that he's creating his profile. Once it's created, he can compare himself to a job role, and this is what his match report would look like. And in here, you can see his overall match up in the right-hand corner. And then you can see several different colors. Green means he's a match. Yellow means he's almost a match. He's missing a few things. And red means, not a match at all. And then what looks like black on this screen is truly gray, and that means you just haven't been assessed in that area yet. So you can see a very quick snapshot and decide, do I want to move with it or not? Or as a recruit, they can see, wow, this company really cares about career development. And that's a very powerful visual as you are trying to hire the best and retain the best. Now, imagine if you are an employee, you have this and all that other data. Their, as I said earlier, their resume, their performance scores, their talent planning requests, all of those things. And when you start building reports for succession, you're going to have some pretty powerful results, but we'll save that for another time. Now, with this information, we can automatically recommend learning options based on the gap. Now you can see here I have a green dot with learning resource 1, 2, and 3, and I'm being generic. But why shouldn't we continue recommending learning options for people who are proficient? Let's make their skills better. But in addition to that, in the yellow where you see developing others, you can see there are other learning resources that, one, if you just click a button, it automatically gets added to your development plan. In addition to that, it will automatically show you people who have those specific skills, and then we can either follow them within the tool and or add them as people that we want as mentors so they can help us develop in a particular area. That's really hard to find online. Well, you might be asking, well, how do those development options get in there? Well, either Talent Guard can provide them to you through our partnerships, or you may already have the content in your learning management system, or you might have it in your SharePoint, or we might connect to some free online resources on the web. There are a million ways you can do that. So that's not the hard part. The best part is that you have the information and we're being somewhat prescriptive in what it takes to close the gap without being dominating or overbearing. And then finally, once the employee or the manager or the mentor and or coach select the most appropriate development options, and all those people can be the ones selecting them, they automatically get entered into your ongoing continuous career development plan. And that plan can be monitored by any or all people in your network. Feedback can be solicited from other managers, other peers, customers, and we can monitor in a project management way the attainment of those goals. So it's always in front of us, and we're now having the employee engage in the destination along with their manager in a collaborative way. And I want to hone in on one important point about learning. The key element to me of this particular story is that relevant development options are being served up based on the employee's collective skills assessment and gap. And they're being served up based on the employee's proficiency level. We're not just saying in a basic way, oh, you need to go take a communication course because you got dinged on communication in your performance review, for example. We're trying to get it down to the actual level that's highly relevant to the expectation of the job, so that an employee doesn't have to spend countless hours guessing about what learning resource is going to close the gap. Now, can you truly imagine that level of personalization? The ability to have a career development plan based on your personal proficiency gap and validated by more than just their manager, because all people are providing feedback on that. Well, it's possible. Let's take a minute to revisit some of the stats at the beginning of this story. 58% of employees indicated they want more one-on-one collaboration time with their boss to discuss career goals. But it always seems to be a struggle to get managers and employees to collaborate on career development. It's truly because managers just don't know how to help. They're not trained on how to be effective career coaches. We have to train them. We have to teach them how to have effective career development discussions. They have to be provided a blueprint for how to help people make transitions. Now, Talent Guard has something that we call the professional career manager, but that's, a more sophisticated approach. On a fundamental basic level, these are some talking points that managers can use to sketch out how they want to engage with employees. The manager should talk about what business challenges lie ahead. They need to review the employee's skills assessment in their talent profiles. They need to discuss the roadmaps or the career paths that the employees made aspirational. Let's talk a little bit about the learning that the employee has engaged in. Those are the things that employees want to discuss in here. And then employees can continue to prioritize and work on the things that are most appropriate. As I mentioned earlier, a person's career ambitions and aspirations change over time. Employees experience many life experiences that change their option of what they want out of life and work-life balance. Employees must be able to express not only the roles they are interested in, but they have to also be comprehensive in their profile with respect to the pace of work that is best suited to them depending on what's happening in their life, the level of workload that they may be able to handle, how often they may be able to move to different locations to complete their job. This model, which was produced by Deloitte in their Mass Career Customization book, is going to change over time depending on a person's age and what they experience in life. And you have to have a career tool that supports people's ability to change these different factors. It has to be organic. So you need to think about that as you introduce career pathing to your company. It is organic. The moral of the story, whether you want to believe it or not, is that organizations must build employee capability before organizational capability. People are intrinsically motivated to do what's best for themselves. And I'm not saying that people are selfish. I'm saying that employees will set their family, their friends, and education as a priority and work second. Whether employees realize it or not, it definitely becomes a reality. Now, while work starts out as a main priority in life because we want to climb the ladder, it usually ends in confusion and disillusionment. As an example, women have been rising to the highest levels in their position only to leave because they find they can't balance work and family. That's not what we want to achieve for all that we've worked for. Now, I've worked for thousands of people, thousands of individuals even, that are still searching for ways within their company to build a brighter future without sacrificing their lives. So how do we allow for and support these types of changes today? Well, through career pathing. It may seem unsurmountable to be able to act on the inside of your workforce. I am sure you've been promised it before with other solutions. But I'm just saying those vendors had it wrong because they've not started with delivering on the employee promise of career development first and then following through on that promise. I've truly devoted my entire life to helping people, and as a secondary benefit, once we help those people in their career goals, helping the benefit of that is that we are helping organizations build organizational capability. Now, what I mean by that is most organizations believe that they have superior talent and they pay greatly for that talent. They know about that talent because that talent typically has a big personality. What they don't realize is that they may have many diamonds in the rough and they have no way to identify, cultivate, and deploy that talent where and when it's needed. because they don't have access to that deep data. Now, that type of information is available when you prioritize employee capabilities first. By putting employees first, something incredible occurs. You collect an incredible amount of data. With that data, you measure so many important factors that help with workforce decisions and planning. A sample view of how data can turn into actionable insights. For example, how many net new skills did we gain year over year? What's the distribution of proficiency levels based on all employees assessed? What are the type of career moves that are happening in our organization? What are the career moves by gender? What about by diversity? What about the client satisfaction scores? Are they actually going up? Is turnover going down? Is engagement going up? You will actually begin to have insights into those key performance indicators. And beyond those basic statistics, HR can now answer specific questions from management, such as, what competencies or roles do we have in abundance? What competencies are we lacking across the company? It's no longer about just an individual, but across the collective talent pool. Where are people with specific competencies located, and can we deploy them if needed? That is powerful insight, and it's what great companies are built on. In summary, high employee engagement is achievable. It takes fostering a relationship among employee aspirations, career opportunity, and company goals. Combined together, they will create a powerful employer brand that trumps your competition on recruiting and retaining the best and brightest talent. When employees are empowered with the right career tools, everyone benefits. Employees can now have a long-term view of their career path. They can be proactive in developing skills for the future. Managers understand what truly interests employees, and they can provide real feedback and true mentoring. And then the companies, as I've iterated over and over, have access to a wealth of data for workforce planning so that you are ready when the economy changes or when something changes within your environment. And I'd love to thank you right now for taking the time with me today. I hope that you gained some new perspective and approaches on how to help your company evolve and make an impact to employee engagement in your company. Just a couple of notes before the final slide. Talent Guard is, as I said, a full-service talent management software company. We have 6 modules in our portfolio today, as well as a few other modules like compensation and LMS, where we have deep integrations to some best-of-breed technologies. And we're happy to share more information about our suite if you are interested. And finally, some next steps. We have a November webinar coming up, and that webinar is on assessing for talent gaps, how 360-degree feedback is helping organizations deliver higher customer value. And you can find out more about that webinar with this link. In addition, you can also, in our career resource library, under the tab Career Pathing, we have lots of other webinars and white papers and executive briefings, but the one that I'm recommending here as a good next step is the white paper, Essential Steps to Improve Employee Engagement Through Career Pathing, and that's the actual link for the download. So thanks again, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.